It's like start the show like everybody drink now.
Yeah, right. Take a drink now. Hey, y'all, welcome to Cross Politic. Thank you for joining us. Good timing. Pastor Toby, Chuck Knox, Waterboy, and we got our local Senator Dave Nelson in the house. Don't touch him. Yeah. Dave, do you see Dave lean away from me? He's like, no, thank you. If you guys want to be in a conversation with us, email us at crosspolitic@gmail.com. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, Facebook, and all that good stuff.
Share the show,
absolutely.
Become a club member.
We have a app that we're building, so stand by for that. I mean, we're
Such
probably
good
30 to 60 days from launching an app for the whole network that's going to organize all the shows very well, and it's going to allow us to do some live streaming, messaging, some pretty cool stuff. I'm pretty excited about it.
Yeah.
And I'll mention the company when it goes live. We'll mention the company. We won't do that yet. We want to make sure everything goes well.
So when's the release?
And then, we're
30 to 60
building
days.
it right now. Okay. So 30 to 60 days. It's got to go through the iTunes store and all that
Get
stuff.
approved and all that stuff.
But we got to, build it first. So
Okay.
pretty pumped about that. Hey, we got a couple conferences coming up that we're going to be at. Would love to see you guys there on the road. We're going to be at ReformCon October 24th through the 26th. There's even a logo up there.
Look at you go.
How about that?
Yeah.
I know.
It's like we're a real show.
Imagine that.
Guys, we're trying.
We're trying.
We're trying. We're also going to be, I don't have a logo for this yet because Ty Hatcher's still working on it.
Soon.
Still working.
Yeah.
It's not our
that
fault.
professional.
It's not our fault. It's Ty Hatcher's fault.
Okay.
We're going to be at Jesus Over Politics Conference in Kirkland, Washington at Trinity Church.
Okay. Awesome.
The venue and all the information will be announced once I get the website.
So if you're in the Seattle area.
That's November 1st and 2nd.
November 1st
Pretty
and
excited.
2nd.
It's coming up.
Toby's going to be speaking. I'm going to be speaking. We're going to be doing a live show there. Pastor Dave Hatcher is going to be speaking. You guys got to hear Pastor Dave.
He's great.
Okay.
And then we're going to also be at G3 conference coming up.
Ooh.
And
Look at that. Just kind of faded right into that again.
Yep.
Oh, man.
PowerPoint can do that.
That's for you, Gabe.
G3, when's that?
G3, that's going to be in January. I think it's 16th through the 18th, I think. But go to g3conference.com
Yeah, we're
for details.
We're still getting
More reason to go to the website.
Hey, guess who else is going to be there with us?
Who?
Rachel Jankovic.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah,
Local.
Rachel speaking.
Bring some Moscow out there.
Ali
huh?
Stuckey is going to be there also. Yeah,
Okay.
so we got some friends
All
from
right.
around the world going to show up at
So
G3.
Pro-Life Georgia.
And we got a secret weapon. We're going to do 2 live shows there, and we got a secret weapon that we're bringing with us.
We do?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
So that means you got to sign up.
Can you open carry in Georgia?
I don't know.
I don't think you can.
I don't know.
No.
No, that's your state. Lastly, Reformation Boise's got Mark Jones coming, and that's going to be November 8th and 9th. We aren't going to be at this conference, but our boys down in Boise are throwing it. Mark Jones is going to be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So
Reformation
if you're in the Boise
Boise.
area,
Look it up.
yeah, look it up.
Check it out. When's it at?
That is November 8th and 9th. So we kind of got
Okay.
some
We're gonna be
conference.
pretty
It's
busy.
conference season coming around.
Okay. All right, cool.
This last week, one of our listeners emailed me and said, "Hey, Google's flagging your email." Cross Politic email.
Oh.
Flagging it as like a bad content,
Like
kind of
spam
email.
or something?
More than that. He sent me. I released a screenshot on my Facebook page yesterday. I think it was yesterday, and everything. So the reason why I bring that up is because one of the things that we're trying to do here at Cross Politic, and that's why we're also building an app, is we're trying to free ourselves from all these platforms that could silence us, like YouTube. Right now, Prager University is going through a lawsuit with YouTube
they're
right now.
that
It's
right
really
now.
interesting.
Interesting.
I'm a little nervous about what Prager is trying to do through that. They're kind of losing some of the conservative principles, like
Sure.
forcing a private company to
Right.
make sure they can do what they want on their platform. I just want honesty from the platforms. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a platform and you are advertising just open access, then you need to provide open access, open, free, whatever.
Yeah. Right.
And if you have an agenda,
then show it.
Then show it.
Yeah.
And you don't think they're going to do that?
I'm sorry. Yo, stand up.
All right, all our club members, as you guys sign up to support us, this is one of the reasons why we can roll out our app here in the next 36 days. We want to do a lot more of this, and the more club members we have, the more we can do more of this.
And they can still get these pint glasses?
They still get the pint glasses. We still got some left.
Makes your water taste sweeter.
And your beer richer. There we go. There we go.
Hey, can I introduce our guest?
Let's do it.
Can we stop just talking? He's like, okay, guys, what's going on?
That was boring.
Hey, we have Dave Nelson with us in the studio. We're grateful to have him. He is our state senator for District 5, which is Latah and Benewah County. Many of you will know that we've had Dan Foreman on the show before, and Dave Nelson beat out Dan Foreman in the last election. And Dave Nelson's a fourth generation Idahoan, grew up on a Genesee wheat ranch. Genesee is just
20 minutes away?
15 miles away from here.
Yeah.
Graduate of the University of Idaho. You left Idaho to pursue a career in oil and the gas industry, writing software that helps companies manage their energy more efficiently. You returned to Idaho 20 years ago with a flourishing business that you started with your boss. When you left Chevron to work together, your company has grown to employ more than 50 people working in Idaho, Texas, and Argentina.
Yeah.
The last 10 years, you've been working as a Democratic county and legislative district chair. Oh, yeah, did we mention he's a Democrat? And recruiting candidates, coordinating the party's operations. He helped recruit and elect Senator Dan Schmidt, Representative Paulette Jordan, Latah County Commissioner Tom Lamar, etc. You live in Moscow. He lives with his wife, Nancy. You have 2 daughters who graduated from Moscow. And it says here your favorite recreation is rafting Idaho's rivers. You still do that?
I am. I've taken off in about 10 days for a trip on the Maine salmon.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Man,
Dave,
bring back some fish.
Oh, not much of a fisherman.
yeah,
Okay.
just
All right.
just gonna float and ride.
Look at watch the bears and the elk and the,
Yeah.
and the
Watch
Watch
the
the bears. Well, when you're in the middle of the river, you're a little safe.
from the river. Although the last couple falls, they've been swimming the river when we were down there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
This time of year, they're very active because it's before hibernation season, and they're trying to get
They're
up,
eating
up
food as
about
possible.
6,000 calories a day. And
They're fattening up.
Wow.
yeah,
I don't want to be part of this.
they're pretty desperate.
So you could run into a bear on the river?
Oh yeah, we've not hit one, but we've seen them on the
Wow.
crossing the
And
river.
they're really hungry.
They're very hungry. but usually they're kind of a little scrawny and afraid of us, so
Okay.
they're usually going the other way.
Yeah.
That's
Man,
funny.
Dave, I have to tell you, man, you had an amazing ground team this last election. Man, your people were everywhere. They knocked.
They
on
came
my-
to your
they
door,
came to
didn't
my
they?
door. It was. I was like, man, who is this guy?
Did I?
Yeah, it's a
did
great
I,
ground
did
team.
Did I come to your door?
You did not.
Oh darn!
And that's why I didn't vote for you.
I bet.
He didn't
If
show
you
up to
don't
my
show up
door.
at my door,
Shake my
Moscow ain't
hand.
that
Yeah.
big, you know.
Yeah, well, it's the ground game that makes a difference. I mean, I probably hit 3,000 doors myself, and
Yeah.
the team probably hit 10 or 12,000.
Oh man, they were
So,
on it.
yeah.
They
Wow.
were on it.
So
Well, okay. So Dave,
So what are we doing here?
well, thanks for being on Cross Politic, Dave.
Well,
Appreciate
thanks,
it.
thanks,
You're
thanks.
a very brave man. No, and also just, I mean, thank you. I know that you're doing a lot of work on behalf of our counties.
Yeah.
And even where we may disagree on policy and so on, you are serving our counties. And so thank you. Thanks for the sacrifice to your
absolutely.
Absolutely.
family and, other things you could be doing, more rafting trips, chasing
Getting eaten by
bears.
bears.
Yeah. So thank you. Really do appreciate it. We wanted to talk to you about, roads, actually, something really, hot and sexy.
Yeah.
Actually, you mentioned this before we started recording, and I failed to mention it. You're on several committees in the Idaho Senate, which are
I'm on this transportation committee,
Yes.
which handles roads and
Yes.
some other issues around transportation.
Yeah.
I'm on health and welfare.
Yeah.
And I'm on the ag committee.
Yeah.
Which is, especially transportation and ag are really important to this district.
Yeah.
A lot of the economy is ag or timber based.
Yeah.
And those products, if we don't have good roads or rail or other transportation means, we don't get those to the market. And that's the cost of freight
right.
from where we harvest stuff and getting there is a really significant issue to constituents in this district.
I think it's really helpful for us to talk about something where actually there are places where I know we would have really strong ideological differences. One of the helpful things about talking about roads, though, actually, is that we agree that roads are a part of the state infrastructure that are part of the state's job.
It is.
There are other places where we would disagree and say the state shouldn't have anything to do with that. But here it's like, yeah, we need roads.
Yeah, there's not a lot of disagreement in the legislature on we need roads. Yeah. It's a little.
Let's hope not.
The disagreement kind of tends to be where do we get the money? For
Exactly.
the roads.
So that's what we want to talk about. How can you just briefly explain for our audience who is responsible for our roads and how are they funded?
Sure. So we have two main road systems in the state of Idaho. The state and federal highway system is managed by the Idaho Transportation Department, which consumes about 60 to 70% of all the dollars we spend on roads.
Okay.
And then we have local roads, which might be city roads, city streets in Moscow, county roads in Latah County or Benewah County.
Yeah.
those are the two places. Idaho's a little unique in how we manage those local roads because there's a real conglomeration of organizations that do it.
Okay.
And it's actually a good place to have, to find a place to contribute to government is in these roads, because we have both the cities, which manage their own road, their streets. Then in some counties, like Benewah County, the county government manages their roads directly. So the county commissioners there are responsible. And in about a third of the counties in Idaho, we have independent road districts. So in Latah County, we have North Latah County Highway District and South Latah County Highway District that have their own boards of 3 commissioners that directly manage those roads.
How are those commissioners selected?
Everybody's elected.
Okay.
It's all elections.
Okay.
Except for ITD. I mean, at the state level,
the Idaho department.
At the state level, the legislature and the governor set the budget. Then there's a appointed board of directors to ITD that manages it, and then a professional infrastructure.
Okay.
But county commissioners, just our standard way, 2 and 4 year terms.
Yeah.
The road commissioners are all on 2-year terms.
Okay.
So how does the funding work if we have?
Where's the money come from?
So we have different.
Yeah. So there's sort of 3 main sources of money to think about that come to pay for our roads. There's federal monies. Okay. And that comes basically from our federal gas tax, which I believe is about 18 or 19 cents a gallon right now.
Right.
So
in Idaho, well, nationally.
National.
Yeah, that's federal.
That's
yeah, federal's nationally. Right. And that gets distributed to the states by some formula. It's not population based. It has a bit to do with the roads you have to manage.
Okay.
Okay.
It's by miles or something like that.
Miles, yeah. And so a state like Idaho, we get more than our share because we have more distances to go between where we do. I mean, it's particularly problematic because we have a lot of rural Idaho that needs these roads.
Yeah.
So federal is one piece. Mm-hmm. Then there's a state gasoline tax, which I believe we're at about 32 cents. And we did, I mean, Idaho's enough, we had enough of a crisis 5 years ago on our roads that we buckled down and raised that gas tax about 5 or 6 cents a gallon.
Okay.
And it's the same on diesel, by the way.
What was that crisis?
The freeway through Boise was falling apart, and the Canyon County, legislators really kind of stopped things and made us get that crisis. And that was one tip of the sword. The other sort of tip is we've done some, studies looking at our maintenance budget in Idaho, and, be sure to think of roads as a investment, right? And we have to maintain that investment. And we're short before 2015, we were short about, I believe the number, and don't hold me too exact here, was about $400 million a year we weren't putting into maintaining the roads. And that's really a deficit in our budget, right?
Is that calculation kind of like depreciation on a house kind of thing where we're like projecting
deferred maintenance?
It's deferred maintenance.
Okay, that's what we're talking about.
It's just maintenance. Yeah. We need to put this many dollars into the roads or
to maintain them,
or the potholes get bigger, or we can't do it. And that's not even counting expansion, right? And Idaho's the fastest growing state in the nation. So that crisis really instituted, that made us, the legislature cut a deal to raise the gas tax. The other third source of money is registration fees, both on trucks, heavy trucks, and passenger vehicles. And that was raised to some degree. Okay. But that deal that was cut was still a couple $100 million short of what we need to maintain our roads.
So what's your thought on what's the solution then? So you're saying basically right now we have a deficit in terms of deferred maintenance on the roads. What's your proposed solution?
So I like to work with other people and get to consensus solutions. So
Sure.
I'm not really trying to slam a solution down on anybody right now. And as I'm just still learning things in the transportation committee, I tend to lean on people like Chairman Burt Brackett, who's been a really strong leader on transportation in our state.
Okay.
Wise man. Carl Crabtree, who's a senator from Grangeville, also been in the trucking industry and cattle for a long time. So I look to all sides to find solutions. That said, though, there's two fundamental drivers on funding that have been catching us. One is the federal gas tax hasn't been raised in 26 years.
Right.
Well, think of what's inflation been over 26 years. If we just were bringing the same amount of money in,
right,
the buying power is half of what it was 26 years ago. So that's a huge hole.
Yeah.
The other thing is
real quick on that. Why do we have a federal gas tax in the first place? I would, the way I look at government, I would want to keep money as local as possible. When we tax money locally and then give it to the feds and then have them redistribute it back to the locals, that is just economically inefficient.
$1 comes back as 25 cents.
Right. Exactly right.
well, in Idaho, $1 comes back as $1.25. But okay.
Yeah, but I don't want to. But that's colonizing us.
But
right.
So we get somebody else's money, is what you're saying?
Yeah, because we have more roads.
So we stole from somebody else.
Yeah, I mean that's the story of almost all funding in rural states.
Yeah, right.
We get lots of money.
But so let me. I just want to
let him finish. Okay. I want to finish the rest of the picture first.
Okay, great.
Before we jump on him.
Okay. Sure. So the buying power of that gas tax has gone down. Okay. Yeah. And think of also what's happened to our vehicles in the last 25 years. Our fleet mileage is probably a third higher than what it was before.
Right.
Okay. Well, it's a gas tax. So we're using a third less gas. So the buying power has gone down by half, and we're per person using a third less gas than we were.
Do you think we're actually using less gas, or are we driving more and there are more people on the roads? I mean, is the total actually less?
Well, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, if we're driving more, we're doing more wear on the roads and we need more roads.
And the revenue's less.
And we got less revenue per mile of road. So, I mean, I'm sure we have grown, especially in Idaho over those last 20 years.
Right.
So
at least in the last 5 years for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So I feel like federally.
So that's one area. That needs to be addressed.
Okay. On the state level, when we had that crisis 5 years ago, part of the deal was to go back over a couple years and look at the way we tax heavy trucks, heavy vehicles. Okay. And they're taxed by a combination of a diesel tax and also a fairly significant registration fee. I mean, if you're running an 80,000 pound semi like Buell Trucking is all the time hauling those chip trucks down, they're paying $2,000 or $3,000 a year registration fees on those trucks. Okay. So part of the deal was we're pretty sure we're undercharging on those trucks, and how do we get our arms around a better fee system?
How do you know you're undercharging?
Well, so trucks are quite a bit more
wear and tear
on the road. It's
heavier.
They're heavier. They're a lot heavier, and they're so if you look at axle weight on the road, a heavy vehicle is going to run about $18,000 or $20,000 per pair of axles. A passenger vehicle is going to run about $2,000. And one important way to think about this is that the trucks, we have to build our roads to sustain the trucks.
Yeah.
If we were just had passenger vehicles out there, we'd put 3 inches less substrate in the roads. Yeah. The gravel would be, or the pavement would be thinner. But we have the trucks, and so they're for supporting a good, solid transportation infrastructure that makes it possible to run those trucks is expensive.
Yeah.
And the trucks we need to make sure we're getting the money from the right places. We could we could tax ourselves more, right? A straight gas tax would be one way to raise some more money that would go to the roads and subsidize trucking. And maybe we want to do that. I personally think it's better to assign costs where they're used. So I think the trucks should be charged essentially for their usage.
How do you think about on that one the fact that these trucks are also being used to probably bring in the most income in terms of productivity in our state, ag, the big businesses, so they're being used to actually bring business to the state,
move the timber in and out.
They're
oh sure. I mean, and that's a justification for some subsidy in that. So I guess
what I'm trying to think though is about so the taxing of. So I get the point. They demand more.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, charge more, demand more. But if they're also bringing in more, They're bringing more income into the state. How do you think about that offsetting that cost? I mean, you want to, if the more businesses come in, the more jobs you have, the more basic living standards rise.
Cities can thrive. They have work.
There's work and so on. How do you think about that offset though?
Well, I think it's the economic development aspects of it are reasonable to think about.
Yeah.
We can assign some dollar value to that and tax ourselves to pay for that. I think that's a reasonable thing to contemplate. I tend to be not real keen when the government's trying to pick winners and losers. And to me, that's a way of picking a winner and a loser.
How? Can you connect the dots for me? Because I actually agree with that principle. Like, I don't want the government picking winners and losers either. So how do you see that?
If you're subsidizing the trucking industry, right?
I'm not thinking of it in terms of subsidies. I'm thinking of it in terms of tax breaks. So rather than taxing heavier, leave them a lower tax rate bracket so that they're free to actually drive more in order to bring more income into the state.
Well, it's still a subsidy, right? Because you're choosing where to give that tax break then. Be it a lower tax rate for the trucking industry relative to the consumers, it's still a subsidy. So I think we in government have to look at the overall bottom line and see that. And clearly, if we're helping the trucking industry more, that's making their cost of doing business more, and maybe the jobs are worthwhile.
Well, and what I would want to do is, I wouldn't actually want to show favoritism to the trucking industry. What I would want to do is just generally cut taxes in a flat and even way in order to give it back to the people. So I'm with you in terms of the state picking winners and losers. I'm also thinking I'm highly suspicious though that it's efficient to fund everything through the state.
Well, we have to pay for the roads.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
and
we agree on that.
And I think the one of the fundamental questions on how we pay for the roads is it all fundamentally on user fees, okay, which is what our current system mostly is, okay, or do we introduce some general fund dollars to pay for the roads, which is done in a few states, but generally, user fees, gas taxes, registration fees, I think are a fairer way to pay for the roads. Yeah. And in Idaho, where we tend to be short on dollars for everything, I mean, I have to say, I haven't seen very many things that are overfunded in Idaho since in my 1 year in the legislature. As soon as you start talking about taking some money from the general fund and directing it to roads, you're really taking it away. So I think that has to be done with a lot of thought. Now, I have been behind that because I think our roads are quite important, and I think they're quite underfunded, especially locally. And let me give you a couple examples. Up in St. Mary's, there's a highway, and I believe it's 5 that goes between St. Mary's and I-90. Okay, it's not going out through 95, but it goes up to Metamont, catches I-90, and so a lot of plywood from the potlatch mill up there goes out. Pulp goes over to a mill that's over on the Montana side. Any products going east, that's the easiest way for them to go out.
Sure.
Well, they have a section of state highway that's about 3 miles long. It goes along a dike on the Snake River or on the St. Joe River, and it's so narrow that semis can barely get past there. Okay. But since we're short on money, ITD has set up this thing where we only do significant work on what are called commerce roads. Okay. And a commerce road is defined as something that has 300 trucks a day or more on that road. Well, St. Mary's industry isn't quite big enough for that. They're about 250, which means that road hasn't been updated in years. It's a safety hazard. There's accidents out there. And so we can't get those dollars. The other example to look at is we have about 2,000 bridges in our local highway system that have been built over the last 80 years. Okay. And a lot of those bridges were built in the 50s and 60s when we were expanding. Well, those bridges are all about 50 years old or more now. They're structurally obsolete. they're restricting commerce, right? Because as they get older, we have to put load limits on it. And I don't know if you've noticed the wheat trucks in Genesee or around here. When I was a kid, they were 16,000 pound wheat trucks. Now they're 80,000 pound wheat trucks.
Oh, wow.
So the wear.
That's kind of good. That's good, right?
I know. Scares me to go drive them down.
The bridges.
Yeah. But those bridges, we don't have enough money to fix those darn bridges. So we've started to find places in the general fund where we can use a little revenue. And I've been behind that. One thing we did in the last session is the state police had about a third of their budget funded out of gas tax. Okay. And the justification, which was set up in the 20s, it makes perfect sense. They're patrolling the roads. They're really part of the road infrastructure.
That's a jump.
Well, no, it's the patrol. It's purely the patrol function of the state patrol. And they're only out on that's where they're at. Okay.
Okay.
So it makes sense. But we decided we would pay that out of the general fund now. And that freed up about $20 million for our roads. And the way we distribute that money, it's 60% to ITD. So 60% could go up to something like that problem at St. Mary's, 40% to local roads, which could deal with some of our local bridges around here.
So here's my fundamental, I think, issue with how we fund our roads is we pass money up to bureaucracies, and then we have to locally kind of dicker with them about how we spend it locally. So now you're sitting here trying to convince legislators, hey, we got this road, 250 semis go down this road every day, and we need to fix it, but we don't have money for it. And so now you go to Boise to fight for that money as opposed to just keeping the tax money local, and then we lose some of the political tensions that might be there at the state level to be able to fund things locally with what we know is most important. So the taxation of passing money up to the state and then recycling it back down locally, I think is a very systematically problematic way of doing things. Does that make sense?
God, I'd be scared to death if our local counties were collecting the gas tax.
Well, I wouldn't be because I know the commissioner and I can go talk to him.
Why? I'd be curious.
Well, then you end up having parallel bureaucracies in every county to collect that gas tax, right? And deal with it. And
it's locally accountable though.
But look at some of the other things we do because we have the state. Okay, our local highway districts that I talked to you about earlier. Yeah. Okay, North Latah County and South Latah County, they don't have an engineer on staff. They end up having to hire consultants to come help them do that. And our state has a system called the Local Highway Technical Advisory Council that we've set up that's got some money this way that provides the engineering for them. It provides the engineering so that when they have to make a decision about putting a 129,000 pound semi, which is the biggest road vehicles we put on the road, they have access to that expertise to make that decision.
But all the counties could chip in for that and share that resource.
They
as
could.
Opposed to state
rather than the state putting it top down, you could have counties who were the stewards of their own funds, and then they chipped in to share the engineering resources.
That would be possible, and I like local control. I mean, our legislature gets a little carried away on local control sometimes. There's bills like no city in the state can control cell phones. How the cell phones use, or no, we haven't done that one yet. We tried to do it. Excuse me. I got ahead of myself. but like on recycling, say we want to do something on plastic bags. States precluded any city or county in the state from being able to do that. Our legislature can get pretty heavy handed on local control.
Here's another angle. I want to go back to the federal side of things as well, because I think it seems like back of all this, we have a major inflation problem. I mean, inflation is what's back of all this, where you have, as you said in the beginning, dollars that don't buy as much anymore. So, you have a gas tax that it was, it's 25 years old or whatever, and it can't buy nearly what it used to be able to buy because of inflation. The cost of energy has gone up. The cost of building materials has gone up. In these particular industries, in particular, prices have skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. But it's striking that in other industries where there's a lot less regulation and a lot less taxation, free market has actually driven prices down. So so where there's massive innovation and ingenuity and relative freedom to just try new stuff. So think about like tech industry, like you're buying, DVD players now for a fraction of when they first came out.
A couple $100 when they first came out.
I guess they call them Blu-ray players now. Huh? I just dated myself. You can buy record players now for
laser. I'm used to Laserdisc.
But where there's relative freedom, prices tend to go down when there's when you can compete. But there's relatively few energy companies. You got a couple of energy companies. You got Avista and you got, Clearwater. And relatively few in the construction industry in Idaho. I talked to local contractors and they're like, yeah, I got like 2 plumbers to choose from. And it's highly, highly regulated and very, very difficult to get into those industries, making it a gold mine for the 1 or 2 people that get there, and they can crank the prices as much as they want. And I think that's directly connected though to the cost of repairing and maintaining our roads.
Yeah.
And so it seems to me that, you can keep raising taxes. And I agree that there's better or worse ways to fund. And I appreciate that. But don't we have a fundamental, like, systemic problem where the prices, especially in these areas of construction, are just skyrocketing? And then when you raise the prices, when you raise the taxes every few years,
we're just incentivizing that behavior.
You're basically acquiescing to that inflation rather than trying to fight it at some fundamental level.
Well, I think you need to go look at the numbers on this to really support your claim that construction costs for roads are really rising uncontrollably.
Okay.
I think the main drivers for cost increases on road construction are really oil, because it's asphalt.
Right.
Right. I mean, so buying oil, and that's a very unregulated industry, right? And really asphalt is the
oil's unregulated?
Pretty darn unregulated.
Chevron?
Pretty unregulated.
Really?
There's lots of environmental things that you have to live up to, right?
Well, that's regulation.
But prices aren't regulated, right? And you're suggesting
you're
suggesting that Avista and our electric utilities, which are regulated, and their prices are totally regulated.
Right.
Yeah, they are.
Right. But but the driver on their prices though is natural gas, really. Right. So, I mean, our utilities here are much more hydro based, but Avista historically has been driven by natural gas prices. You know what natural gas prices were when I started in Chevron in 1989? They were about $2 per million BTU. You know what they are now? They're like $2.40 per million BTU. So there hasn't been inflation driving those costs at all.
But
there's other factors.
I guess that doesn't answer the question though. So if that price hasn't risen,
then why is it? Yeah.
You just said the oil price has not risen significantly.
Oh, the oil has. Natural gas hasn't.
Natural gas hasn't.
Right. So our electricity hasn't changed.
But answer I guess it's just curious to me. So natural gas hasn't risen, but the prices for natural gas have cranked.
No, they're not.
Oh, absolutely have. Avista and Clearwater?
No, go look at their prices. They're not.
Yeah.
They're a factor times that the Henry Hub price and the Henry Hub's a spot price that everybody looks at for doing their prices.
I mean, the contractors I'm talking to though have said that the price, at least the prices for like install, the prices for new construction have skyrocketed.
Maybe for installs, but the commodity price itself has been pretty stable.
Okay.
And oil prices have gone up, right?
Okay.
You know, what were they in 1980?
Yeah.
That was in the depths of an oil depression, right? I mean, I have to say my 8 years at Chevron were kind of horrible because oil prices were down around $15 a barrel, down to like 10 and below for California crudes.
Yeah.
Right. And now we're $60 a barrel, which is, there's lots of suffering, but over 25 years, that's not that huge of an inflation rate.
So if it's not a huge inflation rate, then why the crisis?
Because it's a real inflation rate, right?
Okay.
Right. I mean, if asphalt is costing 3 times more than it was just because of 2 or 3% inflation a year, it costs that much more. It's not inefficiency in that.
So are you saying basically just the 30 years of inflation is what we're seeing in asphalt prices?
30. So think of, we've had 2 or 3% years of inflation for 15 years, right? And before that, it was 3 to 5.
But I guess my point though is that 2 or 3% rate is enormous.
Historically, it's not. Historically, that's
3% inflation.
2%
year
is,
over years.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Well, no,
Yeah.
but
the Federal Reserve
The last 30
targets
years.
2 to 3%
that's what I'm
inflation.
But no. But like, I'm like, take a 200 year or a 500 year snapshot. I'm not talking about 30 year. I'm taking like 500 years. I'm talking, 200
you
years.
can't do that in the U.S. You could probably do more of a 200 year.
But
snapshot
you
or
have
not snapshot, but-
massive inflation starting in the 20th century with when you have specifically
you got off the gold standard was a big problem.
The
with
government getting involved in all these things.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 to 3% inflation now seems normal and easy.
Mhm.
I get that. We're used to it, but that doesn't mean it's healthy.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that pushback. And there's a number of factors that have been connected to it. One was getting off the gold standard.
Yeah, but what this does though is think about people on fixed incomes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Somebody retires on a fixed income. Their income's not going up. Inflation is a tax on people who are no longer bringing an income in.
Right.
Their dollar is worth less every single year.
Right.
And then add up the percentage points over 30 years. Okay.
Right.
That's robbing those who worked hard for their livings.
And so your point is, let's get at one of the deeper issues in all this.
I think we need to recognize that there's a deeper systemic problem with that kind of inflation rate.
Okay.
I think frankly it's evil because it's putting people who are no longer able to work, who have fixed incomes, who worked hard and saved up money for retirement. Now that dollar is worth less.
Yeah.
And every time you raise taxes then to basically acquiesce to that inflation rate,
it's making the dollar worth a lot more.
you are actually encouraging that same thing to happen such that the people on these fixed incomes can't do it. They end up having to sell their houses that they worked hard for. Property taxes go up. All these taxes go up and they can't keep up with it. I mean, I think we do have an inflation problem, even though we might say relative to the last 30 years, it's been relatively stable. I think that is a problem that needs to be fought.
So I'm an engineer by training, and I fix the problem in front of me.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough money for our roads, so that's what I like to focus on.
So then what's the answer? Because before you said you're kind of open to working through an answer, but you got the problem in front of you more than we do. What's the easiest answer that you can see?
Well, if I've learned anything in being in the legislature is there's no easy answers because there's always a trade-off.
Easiest.
Well,
it sounds like you're saying some combination of raising taxes.
I think we need to. So one other factor that's kicking in here that kind of plays into where I would like to go is we're starting to have a transition in how vehicles are powered in the country, right? There's more electric vehicles. You might know somebody with an electric car.
Yeah.
That's actually coming to big trucks in the next 5 years.
Yep,
Tesla's producing one of those.
Because people want to tax the gas.
That's right.
Well, but there's also LNG powered trucks.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually quite a fairly significant network.
Liquid gas.
Liquefied natural gas.
Yep.
Okay. Well, electricity's not taxed for the roads. LNG is not taxed for the roads.
Not yet.
Not yet.
The government's going to find a way.
And that is kind of the point. We need to figure out that way and what's the fairest in the long term. And maybe we need to just add taxes to those things that are when they're purchased to cover that. Maybe we need to give them a break for a couple of years.
But isn't that
to get them introduced?
You just told me about the problem in front of us. That's the problem in the future. What's the problem in front of us right now? How do we pay for it?
So maybe the problem.
So
maybe the problem in front of us is to switch to the solution in front of us is to switch to a mileage based tax. So pay for how many miles you go rather than how much gas you go. Okay, because then that's fuel neutral. It's just how much you use. And it's got problems. I mean, who wants to have a something in the back of their car telling the government where they're at? So we can't
Not this guy.
Can't go there.
Well, now your travel is just tax. You can't, everywhere you move, you're paying for moving there.
Well,
but you are now.
I mean,
that's a gas tax.
But it's getting worse at that point.
But I think we have to be moving into a tax system, something like that, to recognize the change in how our vehicles are.
Do you think though? I mean, again, I appreciate your experience here on this and your background and your instincts. But so take it like an engineer. when you look at the problem, but you also have to look at the various effects of the solutions you propose to the problem. So you can have an immediate fix that might seem like an immediate fix, but long term is actually feeding the problem. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Sure. I don't quite see the long term issue here, but okay.
But I guess the long term issue I'm talking about though is with it seems to me that the funding all the problems through various taxes.
Well, I don't think the roads are a problem. The roads are something we need to support because our economy depends on it,
right.
and both through
and I
transportation of commodities, but just for you and I getting to work in the morning. So we got to pay for that.
Right. But my point is that the cost of paying for that is being contributed to by other factors. And it seems to me if you just keep paying out, they keep saying it's this much money, and you say we need more money. We need more money. Well, why not, as an engineer, question, why do you need that much money to do that job?
Well, as an engineer in learning engineering economics, we learn to deal with inflation and and program that into the cost.
Yeah.
And I would challenge you to come back to me and show me that inflation was lower in previous periods significantly.
Sure.
I think in previous periods there was actually really very, very dramatic inflation.
There has sometimes been dramatic inflation, more dramatic than now. That's exactly true.
Look at Argentina right now. Argentina's running plus 50% inflation because
because their government.
Well, it could be our government doing the same damn thing, right?
That's why we should be on the gold standard. I mean, let's get back. I think this illustrates, though, what happens is we complicate the process by taking money and putting it so far away from the decisions that need to be made on St. Mary's Road, and then we're all vying for this fixed pot of money.
Yeah, I do think that just in terms of a smaller zoom in solutions, I think if it sounds like you agree with local control is generally better. I think that would at least be moving the ball in the right direction. I mean, even if we don't agree or see things exactly the same on the big scale, I think moving things locally, keeping the money local as much as possible, sharing resources as needed, engineering, so forth. I think it's just more efficient.
I think local control is great. I think transportation infrastructure is a big engineering endeavor, and there's a lot of efficiencies for managing our freeways and our main state highways.
The government's not known for being efficient.
There's a lot of engineering expertise to do a road. I mean, go visit the.
I agree. Engineering expertise, but I'm just saying the government is not an efficient bureaucracy, and it never has been. It wasn't set up to be either.
Well,
really.
Engineers are bureaucrats working through our Idaho Transportation Department to try to design the best roads they can, and they don't always do the right thing.
Sure.
I'm sure that we always got to have our eye on it. Are they efficiently spending our resources? But I would be, if we were going to manage every 10-mile segment of the Interstate 84 through Idaho by the local district, I think that's crazy. Actually one thing to go look at just to contemplate on this, because Idaho actually is the extremes on this. We have ITD, which manages big things,
right?
But these local transportation commissions I was talking, Idaho County has 13 separate highway districts. Mm-hmm. Idaho County's huge, but 13? I mean, some of them have like 20 miles of road.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the extreme of local control.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess I still prefer that though than Boise. Everything having to run through Boise. Yeah. I'd rather local people take care of that.
After hearing ITD complain about why they can't do that road in St. Mary's, I tend to agree with you sometimes too.
So Dave, if anybody has any answers, maybe to help you out since you're searching for some, where can they send those answers to?
Sure, they can. So they can just email me with information, or if they want to talk, and I'm at David.Nelson.Moscow@gmail.com. So that's just my personal address. Send it to me, and that'd be great. I look forward to any ideas people have.
Awesome. If you're single, get married. If you're married, have kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until Sunday, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.